Hello everyone, I'm Steve Aleman. I'm an attorney and policy specialist at Disability Rights Texas. Welcome to our final Facebook Live Lunch and Learn series. Today we're talking about cameras in the classroom, a classroom such as today's setting. We're going to discuss three things about cameras in the classroom in a moment. But before we get started, I want to remind everyone that Disability Rights Texas is currently conducting a community survey. We want to know what is most important to the lives of people with disabilities in our great state. So please take a moment to visit our website, www.drtx.org/survey, to answer a few questions. And as a little bonus, each month we have a drawing for a gift card for those who complete the survey. Again, please check out the details of the survey at www.drtx.org/survey. Again, today's Facebook Live event is about cameras in the classroom. I'm going to talk about which students and classrooms are covered by this state law, the process for installing cameras and viewing the video and audio recording, and finally, tips for parents. So let's get started. Our first topic, what students and classrooms are covered by the cameras in the classroom law? Here in Texas, we provide for video and audio surveillance of Texas special education classrooms that are self-contained. So what does self-contained mean? It is a special education setting where the majority of students assigned to the classroom or setting for 50% or more of the day and are receiving special education services to meet their needs of their disability. Now, it's important to know that even with these self-contained special education classrooms and settings, having cameras is not automatic. Cameras will only be installed upon request. Now, there are four types of requests that can be made. A request by a parent, a request by a campus staff member, a request by a campus principal or assistant principal, and finally by a school district board of trustees or a charter school board of directors. When a parent requests a camera for their student, it's only going to be for the classroom where that student receives special education services in that self-contained setting. Likewise, when a campus staff member asks for a camera, it's going to be for the camera where that staff member works, serving students with disabilities. However, when a school district board of trustees or a charter school board of directors decides to install cameras, they can decide themselves whether the cameras will only go into a particular classroom or into all self-contained classrooms within their district or charter school system. It's important again to point out that cameras in the classroom only occurs upon request, and it depends upon who is that requester. Now, once a request is made, it's important to know that there will be timelines that begin to run about what happens next by the school district or the charter school. The first deadline is 7 school business days. What happens within 7 school business days? The school district or charter school must decide whether or not that classroom does qualify under the law and will make the decision that indeed it will honor the request to install the equipment. That is the first deadline, 7 school business days, when they will get back to the requester, the parent, the staff member, or the board of trustees. Following that initial determination about installing the equipment, another timeline begins. This is generally going to be 45 school business days. 45 business school days is the timeline for how soon all the equipment and wiring must be installed so that there can be video and audio recording in that self-contained classroom. It's important to know that there are some exceptions to the 45 school business day deadline, and most importantly, these exceptions occur near the end of the regular school year, such as in the spring semester. So what might happen at the end of the spring semester? For example, there may be what we call the annual ARD or ARD committee meeting to decide that a student in the coming school year in the fall will be in a self-contained classroom. If that occurs and the parent decides for the next school year, I would like to have video camera in that classroom, they can immediately ask for that installation over the summer. And when it comes to this new school year, all of that equipment must be in place within 10 school days of that new school year. So the 45 school business days is a general rule, but there are some exceptions when it comes to requests for the upcoming school year when we know the student will be in an eligible classroom and the parents decide right away for the next school year there should be video monitoring. Now, it is also important to point out that there could be some other exceptions here when it comes to how quickly the equipment must be installed. School districts do have the ability to ask our State Department of Education, known as the Texas Education Agency, or TEA, for a ruling that says that because of certain exceptional circumstances, they will be allowed more time. So what might be an exceptional circumstance? For example, a student might be in a self-contained classroom in a very old building where installing the wiring and installing the equipment is more difficult or more challenging. They might use that as the basis for a request. There might be other circumstances that affect how quickly the equipment can be installed, depending upon how many cameras, for instance, that have to be in the room to ensure coverage of the entire space. So those will be decided on a case-by-case basis by the Texas Education Agency in responding to that request. Now finally, I'll point out here about school business days. What does that mean in terms of the timeline? Those are days that the general business office or administrative office of the school district or the charter school are open. So for instance, if the entire school district is closed for the end of year holiday, then those days or those weeks perhaps do not count towards the deadline. So in summary, there are certain classrooms that will receive video cameras, and there will be video and audio surveillance of students with disabilities. Those are self-contained classrooms, and that will only occur upon request of either a parent, a staff member, or a school district. And once that request is approved, then there are certain timelines for the installation of that equipment. But let's move on in our presentation and talk about the actual use of that video monitoring and when it might be viewed by parents or staff members. Let's point out here that the most important reason why the state does now allow video and audio monitoring of special education classrooms is to serve as a deterrent to misuse and abuse of students with disabilities who are most vulnerable, such as students who aren't able to speak or easily communicate what occurs in a classroom. It is sad to say, but there have been Texas students with disabilities who have been hurt and injured by staff members in a Texas public school. So that's why we have this law. It enables parents then, if they believe that something has happened to their child, to ask to view the video view the video recording, So let's talk a little bit more about that process of being able to use the video and check to see if something wrong has happened to a child. It's first of all important to know that when the equipment is finally installed in accordance with the timeline I described, all the area of the classroom must be able to be seen on the audio and video equipment. So it could be one camera, it might be two cameras, it might be three cameras, whatever covers all angles of the space for that particular student's classroom. Now this also includes, importantly to point out, any timeout room that might be attached to that classroom. Now what is a timeout room? That might be some space, a smaller area connected by a doorway where a student goes to be by him or herself because of behavior, allowing that child to calm down or regain composure. This is sometimes a behavior management technique used by school districts, but we want to make sure that the student is still safe even in that adjoining space. So there are areas of the classroom that will not be covered, however, and that is if a classroom, for instance, includes its own bathroom. That bathroom space will remain private and cannot be seen on the video camera. Now that we understand the space that's covered by the recording, what happens if you believe that something wrong has happened? First of all, we have to make sure that someone steps forward and makes a complaint about an incident. It's important to understand that in this state law, there has to be a reason why you believe something has happened wrong. In the state law, we call that an incident. The Texas Education Agency, under its own regulations and rules, says that an incident is an allegation of abuse or neglect. So if you believe, for instance, that your teacher has not been following your student's IEP, that, while might be a complaint, it's not a complaint about an incident that's subject to review on a videotape. It has to be about harm to the student in that classroom. Now, once you are able to make that complaint, it's important to do that in accordance with the proper procedures. Then you will have access to that video. I'll also point out, however, today that there are other people who could see the video beyond the parents. For instance, if there is a school district investigation of a staff member, Child Protective Services does an investigation because of a complaint of abuse or neglect. A state agency such as the Texas Education Agency or State Board of Educator Certification, if they're conducting an investigation of a teacher, they may also have access to that video. So be aware that it goes beyond the teacher or the staff member who may have a chance to see it. Now, an important revision of the law that occurred during this legislative session when Texas lawmakers were meeting in Austin in 2017 is that once a request is made for the video, it must be stored and kept during the investigation. And if there is a determination that some abuse or neglect occurred to the student, that tape must be further kept and retained until all reviews have occurred and any potential administrative matters are dealt with, including any appeals. Otherwise, please be aware that the recording will only be kept for 3 months. This is a change in Texas law, and it's important that you know that if you do have a concern about something that may have happened in a classroom, you need to speak up within days and not wait weeks or months. Because if you do, there is a chance that the district will delete the recording from that day. So once something happens, unfortunately, if you believe that your child has been injured in a Texas classroom that is subject to surveillance, you need to act promptly. Now let's go ahead and move on in our presentation today. And I'll point out that, of course, that these are just brief highlights of our Texas Cameras in the Classroom law. You can find more information on our website that I mentioned before, disabilityrightstexas.org. Now, if you believe that something has happened to your child, then we need you to file a complaint. Now, where do you send your complaint? We recommend that you do 2 things. That you send it to both the campus principal and to the central administrative office. That way that the school district is immediately on notice that the tape needs to be safe and kept in storage, and the clock begins to run for you to gain access. Now, it is important to point out that the law does not exactly say how soon the school district must allow you to see the tape, the video recording. However, our general standard under other law is 45 days. Well, that does sound like a long time and is a long time. We do know that that is the outer limit. So there should not be any real delay, but there will be, of course, some allowance given to school districts to retrieve the recording and make it available to you. But do know that unfortunately there is not a set deadline for a rapid turnaround of allowing parents to view it. Now, what happens if they, for some reason, a school district were to say no to you? Well, under our state law, we now have a new provision to allow you to make an immediate request to the State Department of Education, the TEA, for a determination about whether or not the school district should allow you to see it. This is in addition to the regular grievance procedure at a school district where you were to bring a complaint saying that they're not following the state law. So now we have an immediate appeal option for parents to go to the Texas Education Agency and ask for a decision that the district allow this parent to see the tape right away. Now, once you see the tape, and if you have decided that there are allegations of abuse and neglect that are substantiated, then be aware that the school district itself should report that to Child Protective Services. But we recommend that you go ahead and make your own complaint to Child Protective Services. We need to be aware that because of the scope of the allegation of abuse and neglect, this not just involves proper school district operations and the safeguarding of your child, but it involves as well other state agencies such as Child Protective Services. So we recommend that you follow up with CPS as well if you believe something has happened on the tape that's documented as abuse or neglect. Now, I'll go ahead and talk about one final aspect of this procedure of what happens if for some reason the school district does not respond to you, and that is using the state appeal process to ask for a review. Now, as I pointed out, our new state law allows for what's going to be known as an expedited review, where you can ask for an immediate ruling by the Texas Education Agency to see the tape. Otherwise, you have to go through the local grievance procedures and bring a complaint to your your school board or your board of directors of the charter school. Once that occurs, if you're not satisfied with those determinations, you can appeal to the Commissioner of Education. The Commissioner of Education is the top official at the Texas Education Agency, and you can ask for a hearing. We hope that parents don't have to go through that process, but I want to point out that that is a new clarification in our state law, that if for some reason a district disputes your ability to have the camera installed or disputes your ability to see the video, you also have your full grievance procedures available, including an appeal to the Commissioner of Education. So in today's presentation, I have quickly summarized the special education settings where a camera can go, the procedures for asking for a camera and the timelines, what circumstances allow you to see the tape, and what to do if for some reason you're not allowed to view the video and have the right to appeal.
Stephen, we have some really good questions. I'd like to answer a few of them. Will you tell them that we have a few questions we're going to answer?
Sure. So at this time, this is a quick overview and summary of this law, but we're going to take some questions from our audience now, and I will repeat the question as soon as it's read to me from our Facebook account. And if you have other questions, let me let you know that you can always contact us through Facebook and we'll respond and let you know. But we have time this afternoon for just a few questions before we have to conclude. We'll take our first question now.
One question was, how do parents know if their child spends more than 50% of their instructional day in self-contained classrooms?
Okay, so the first question is about how does a parent know if their student is even in a classroom for more than half of the day and eligible for cameras. That answer to that question is about the annual ARD committee meeting. When you visit with school members in committee to write the IEP and review the placement of the student, the school committee should tell you what the placement setting is and how much time the student will sit there and be educated in that setting. And so if they don't tell you that, that's a good question for all parents to ask. How long will my student be in a separate setting? In the law, we know this as what's called the least restrictive environment, or LRE. We expect all students with disabilities to be in mainstream integrated settings as much as possible. We understand that some students, however, cannot be and must be in more separate settings, only with other students with disabilities. That should always be made clear with the parent, and if it's not, you should ask. But when you ask those questions, that will allow you to know whether or not the classroom is one where a camera can be installed. And at the very worst, we would always recommend that if you have a concern about the safety of your child, ask for the camera, and the district can always tell you, no, it's not eligible setting, and you can review that information further at that time. We'll take another question.
do I have to reapply yearly? And if so, and the 45-day limit is correct, can I request the cameras at the end of the school year for the following year?
So our next question is whether or not I have to renew my request, or when is the best time to renew a request? And that's a great question. The law that we're speaking about is a state law. It allows under the Texas Education Code for the video monitoring of special education classrooms. It used to be the law that once you made a request, that request was valid almost indefinitely. In 2017, the Texas legislature did change that law, and so to be clear, now once you request a camera in your student's classroom, it's only applicable for that particular that particular school year. So when it comes to the end of the school year, in May or June, whatever the case may be, the school district should remind you, and tell all parents in that classroom for that matter, that the cameras won't be returning and won't be turned on unless someone asks for it. Now, it could be a staff member, it could be you, it could be the family member of another student in that classroom. But at the end of every school year now, you should be asking for the cameras in the next school year. We'll see if we have time for another question.
So I think that's all for now.
Okay, it looks like we've run out of time today, but we do appreciate you watching this Lunch and Learn series, including today's session on cameras in the classroom. Just to let you know that this recording will be posted on our social media outlets, on our website, and you'll be able to view it again on Facebook or on YouTube. This is true for all of the Lunch and Learn series if you missed them. And just to remind you, they've covered topics such as education, housing, other access rights. So we are always a resource to you at Disability Rights Texas for more information. Again, visit our website, like us on Facebook, and again, at this time, we want to remind you as well about our community survey to help us better meet the needs of Texans with disabilities. Go to www.drtx.org/survey, and remember, you might be winning a gift card for participating. Thanks again for watching, and this concludes today's Lunch and Learn.